tell you, the gun goes off, and I've never experienced this before in my life. I see an entire body fly in front of us. I thought it was a false start.
What's up and welcome to the video. If you're wondering what the hell just happened, how did a 22-inch monster just beat a 16-inch Tesla? Hang tight. I'll show you how to start is the most important part of accelerating fast on an EUC and how to become the fastest drag racer. What I'm going to teach you revolves around the acronym I coined called F.A.S.T, or FAST. Throughout this video, I'll be showing you guys how the concept of FAST is utilized to deliver explosive starts that can be used to remedy the starting torque limitations of the bigger wheels. So, what is FAST? Let's break it down. F stands for flex the hips and knees. A stands for attack the ground. S stands for straight line rolling. And finally, T stands for throw both arms forward. With that being said, let's take a look at the image that I've had up. So what I've drawn are parts F and T from the concept of FAST. The arrow is showing off the principle of T, throwing your arms forward, which will displace your center of mass the furthest forward. The second depiction is F. Flex the hips and knees. You can see that my hips and knees are highly flexed with a great degree of bends compared to my friend. This contributes to a greater amount of propulsion for my acceleration. I'll elaborate more later on, but essentially the deeper you can bend your knees and hips, the more propulsion you can generate. Think about a flip turn in swimming. The swimmers are pushing hard against that wall while they're trying to swim fast forward. This brings me into the next part of FAST, which is the A, attack the ground. Attack the ground is really just a byproduct of F, or flexing your hips and knees. Like I said before, the greater you can sink your hips and bend your knees, the more you can actually attack the ground. S, or straight line rolling, is simply maintaining a straight line while your first step is accelerating, which I'll explain later on. So let's have a look at how I destroy this Tesla rider who's 50 pounds lighter than me with my Nikola.
Alright, so you said 3, 2, 1, go.
3.
Wait, you're not even at the start.
3, 2, 1, go.
Alright, let's see that one in slow-mo. As we go in slow-mo, I want you to pay attention to the guy in red, me, and how he's utilizing the concept of FAST, how he's throwing his arms forward, how he's attacking the ground with an incredible amount of propulsion because of the incredible amount of flex at his hips and knees. Make sure to also take a look at my friend who's using the typical kickstart without utilizing the concept of FAST. His start was too poor and the race was over in the beginning. So this is actually the race before my friend went against me. He's racing against the Dualtron 2, which is a dual motor 40+ mile/hour scooter. Now both riders weigh about the same amount of weight. The Dualtron 2 has around 1600 watts compared to the Tesla V2, which is 1900 watts. But man, I can swear when I'm on that Dualtron 2 with dual motors activated, it feels like I'm flying. So this was a fun little race, and the results were certainly shocking. This opened my eyes to how fast the Tesla was. Now this is a Dualtron dual motor scooter with maxed out settings, and it's pretty impressive that he was able to beat it. In this clip, I just want to highlight some of the flaws that my friend is making. Even though he got a pretty good start, there's still a couple of things that I want to point out that he did wrong. Although this race wasn't even close, he could have made the Dualtron 2 look like one of those rideshare Lime scooters with the proper technique. The first thing that he does wrong is something that 90% of riders actually do when they're trying to do their kickstart. Instead of throwing their arms forward, they simply hold one or two arms statically out in front of them. You can see that in this clip, he has one arm that he's holding statically in front of him. And he also throws one arm back, which is, a big no-no. By throwing that arm back, all he's doing is displacing mass that should be going forward, rearward, which will reduce your acceleration, obviously. I mean, I certainly understand his thought process. It's pretty much similar to a football player's three-point start. He has one arm going back and the opposite leg is pushing back along with it. So they're in sync. But since we're on an electric unicycle and not running down a track, that long lever or that long arm going backwards is not conducive to fast acceleration. The reason you need to throw your arms forward in a dynamic and explosive fashion instead of statically reaching out in front of you is because as you throw it forward, it quickly displaces your center of mass to the front, which in turn increases acceleration. So the faster you can get leaning forward in that accelerative position, the faster obviously you can accelerate. So let's talk about the second mistake that he makes. You can see as he transitions from the kick phase to putting his foot on the pedal, he starts to straighten up, to actually lean back. So essentially, instead of remaining in an accelerative posture, he's actually re-accelerating because he steps on the pedals and he kind of leans back and then he leans forward again to try to accelerate. You'll see in one of my starts when I utilize the concept of F.A.S.T that I remain in my accelerative posture and actually lean forward even more when I actually step on the pedals. So I'll critique two more riders' techniques before I finally delve into some more races and my own technique. For this guy, I told him to accelerate as hard as possible, and this is his result. He's about to take off and stop. I mean, I can look at this right now and I can tell you that's not a very fast start. And the sad reality is that most people, that's like their fast start. But, I mean, you can just look at the angles that he's in. You can tell he's not getting any sort of propulsion with that. As you can see from that little drawing I did, the shin and thigh angle were way too vertical. I mean, to get the maximum propulsion, you'd want your thigh and shin angle to be damn near horizontal. And you can see with my little stick figure guy that his thigh angle is horizontal on his rear leg. So this final guy I'm going to critique, I'm sure you all know him. Fan Thomas of EUC fame. Now this is footage from his MSP drag test video. I think he's trying to set a record or something for how fast he can accelerate the MSP. So the crazy thing about this still image is it's not that different from the looks of my standing start. It doesn't look that different, but there are some fundamental flaws that he's making. When I looked at this, I was like, man, this is going to be a fast start. But then I saw it in motion and I was like, wait a second. We don't even really need to look at the video because this image of his setup from a standing position is enough. I mean, his angles just dramatically reduce his chance of getting out fast. The two most glaring things that I see are that his back leg is extended. How he'll push with a straight leg, I don't know. The second thing is that his arm is just straight down instead of cocked back, which tells me that he's going to throw it back instead of forward, which we've talked about. So he's already in violation of 3 of the 4 targets of F.A.S.T. He's not flexed at the knees for F, which means he can't A, attack the ground. And we know from his dangling arm, he's not going to T, throw the arms forward. One more thing that I also want you to take notice when you watch the actual motion video of this start is the wheel stays in place until he steps on the pedals and starts leaning. You'll always see in my starts that I get the wheel rolling while I'm trying to step onto the pedals. This is because I'm following the principles of F.A.S.T. I'm attacking the ground and I'm flexing the knees and hips in order to get that propulsion. So while I'm pushing, I'm moving the wheel further forward so I can get a rolling start essentially before I actually land on the pedals and start really cranking it and leaning forward. And you'll see that F.A.S.T. doesn't do that. His wheel just remains motionless until he steps on the pedals. That in and out of itself is probably the biggest waste of time I've ever seen in someone trying to do a fast start. I mean, you cannot let somebody gap you like that. I mean, he would get left behind by somebody who's doing that sort of rolling start before they land on the pedals. While everybody's pushing, their wheel is going to be going forward. While F.A.S.T, he's not going to be pushing. He's just going to be trying to retrieve his rear leg and put it onto the pedal. But his wheel isn't going to be moving, while everybody else's wheel will be moving while they're doing that. So essentially, F.A.S.T will be playing catch-up, but if he's going against a strong starter using the principles of F.A.S.T, it won't matter how strong his second half is. In a race of acceleration, the race is usually won at the start. F.A.S.T might slightly gain, but he'll run out of real estate before the finish line. So let's actually have a look at his start. And right there, we see that the wheel remains motionless. Alright, coming into slow-mo, you'll see it a lot more clearly, and you'll see that he doesn't actually push. All he's doing is retrieving his leg and stepping on that pedal. So enough of the critiquing, let's just dive right into my start. We're going to get into my start, my maximal start, and I'm going to highlight and show you all the things that I do right to make this the most aggressive start you can possibly do, the fastest start you can possibly do, the best start that you can possibly do. Now keep in mind that this is just the start, and although I think the start is the most important aspect of a race, you'll have to see other videos on how to accelerate from a rolling start. So let's finally talk about what makes a perfect start. The first thing you should notice is my stance. If you look closely, you can actually tell that it's opposite of what a football 3-point start would be. My back arm is actually on the same side as my back leg, which should be the opposite way around. The reason for this is that in a normal 3-point stance, all your weight, or most of it, is on the front foot. But in here, since I'm already on the wheel, I can't really push down and propel myself with my front foot because the wheel is moving forward with my front foot. So my only option is to use that back foot to push myself while simultaneously throwing that back arm forward. Because remember, normally in a 3-point stance, that back foot isn't pushing. Only your front foot is really doing all the pushing. But since I can't push with my front foot, I'm going to have to push with my rear foot while I'm on the EUC. So remember that stick figure I drew? Yeah, him. So this is the actual representation of what I was trying to draw. You can see that my thigh and shin angle are almost horizontal, which is synonymous with almost giving the maximal amount of propulsion. I just wanted to put these overlays up real quick to give you an idea of how low I am compared to the other guys, and how being that low allows you to attack the ground and to really get that maximal amount of propulsion. You can also see that my arms are far more extended than anyone else, because when you throw them forward, they naturally get their full extension compared to someone who just statically does it. So I'll walk you through the full acceleration and I'll show you the F.A.S.T principles, and after that we can get to some more fun stuff, some more fun races that I have for you guys. We start off with one arm cocked back on the same side as the pushing leg. Everything is deeply flexed for maximum push. Notice how low my body is, my hands almost scraping the ground. Now the arms explode forward. The rear leg extends forcefully into the ground, attacking it. You can see that I maintain straight line stability even though I'm rolling forward with one foot for a long duration. This is the principle of S in F.A.S.T. It's most apparent in the smaller, more twitchy wheels. As I land on the pedals, I lean even further forward. You'll notice my arms have naturally swung back. This serves as a counterbalance to the increased forward lean, adding stability so I don't lose balance and fall off the front. One more thing is that you'll notice that I'm not leaning straight forward, but towards the side. That's a discussion for another video, and for now, that's it for the full walkthrough of the best acceleration angles. Let's take a look now at some races where I push the F.A.S.T concept to the limits against physics-defying odds. To give you guys a better idea of the torque between these two wheels, I had us do this first race with no technique, just a standing lean. You can see the MCM5 is much faster. I'll be honest, racing the MCM5 had me nervous. I felt the effortless torque on that wheel and pondered if beating it was even a possibility. I've raced my 84-volt M103 against it, and the MCM5 murdered it. Now, I was hoping to win on a wheel 6 inches larger in diameter.
Alright. You ready? Yep. 3, 2, 1, go.
Despite all the anxiety, this race was no problem for the F.A.S.T technique. The biggest factor that prevented the MCM5 from winning was its difficulty in maintaining straight line stability during kickoff. For such a thin and small tire, it's very squirrely at low speeds, and this makes it quite difficult to track in a straight line for hard acceleration. The M103 suffers this problem even more dramatically. With perfect technique, I was able to comfortably and easily cruise away from the MCM5, even despite my challenger weighing 40 pounds less than me. I needed a greater challenge, so I decided to stack the odds against myself in this final race. Just like in the last race, we used standing starts with no technique. I should also mention that none of our wheels have power pads. They're bone stock. Power pads are nice for safety as they block you from falling forward from bumps and are excellent for hill climbing, but on a straight, they don't actually allow you to accelerate any faster than you can do naturally. What they actually do in terms of helping acceleration is noobify it. You no longer have to lean skillfully to prevent overleaning because the pads are there to stop you. I hate power pads, but I recognize their use for off-road and hill climbing. And back to the race, you can see that the Tesla wins a standing start quite comfortably. It's very hard to lean the monster without kick-starting it, as it feels like you'll fall off the front. That's why my posture looks very upright. It still felt like I was going to fall off the front. The cool thing about this race is that once I use the F.A.S.T principles, you'll see how I can lean dramatically further forward than a standing start. Since I get the wheel rolling before I lean it, I avoid the starting torque limitations, or turbo lag. This means utilizing F.A.S.T is also safer because it prevents falling off the front of the big wheels on standing starts.
Alright. 3, 2, 1, go.
So let's see this final race in slow-mo. It's funny because by the time we filmed this race, I had kicked my friend's ass so many times, he became semi-aware of techniques of F.A.S.T. You'll see him flex deeper in this race and even attack the ground as well as throw both arms forward compared to other races. But it still wasn't enough to overcome mastery of this concept. I've had this video almost completed for the longest time. I wanted to add more race footage such as the Monster versus the 16X, and I even toyed around with the idea of suiting up in track spikes and racing on foot against some EUCs. But the overall video was getting far longer than I anticipated, and so I had to cut it short. But I hope you guys enjoyed it and can apply this concept to your EUC skill set. So that's it. Happy riding.